So we worked on coordinates in the first quadrant and in all four quadrants, but with the numbers on the x-axis and the y-axis all shown, and also with the grid lines all shown as well. So what we're going to do now is going to work on showing coordinates where we've just got the x-axis and the y-axis shown, but there are no numbers on those x and y-axes, and where there are no grid lines. But hopefully, because we've understood some key ideas from the other coordinates work that we've done, this should be fairly straightforward. So this is a good example. We're shown the x-axis and the y-axis, but we're not told on those where the different numbers are. Got to work that out. And we're shown, in this case, just a line, and we're given two sets of coordinates, the coordinate for A and the coordinate for C, and we've got to work out, using our knowledge of coordinates, what the coordinates of the point B are. So let's break the question down and work out what we know already and see if that will help us to work out what we need to find out. So we're told in the question that B is halfway between A and C, and that's really important, as you'll see in a minute. So we also know that on the x-axis, point A is at 3, because we're told the coordinates for A are 3 and 4. And we know that the first number in a coordinate refers to where that point is on the x-axis. So as you can see, I've drawn a little line down from A. We know that on the x-axis, that's 3. We also know that C on the x-axis is at 0.7, and that's a really, really big help to us. It's a big help because if we know that on the x-axis, the big jump between point A and point C is the size of 4, then that's going to help us to work out where B is on the x-axis. If the big jump between A and C is 4, and we know that B is halfway between those two letters, then we know that the jump from A to B is 2, and we know that the jump from B to C is 2. And that means we can quite easily work out that the x-axis coordinate for B must be 5. It's 2 more than 3 and 2 less than 5. So that was quite easy to work out with the information that B is halfway between A and C. So we've worked out from the information that we're given in the question and from our understanding that the x coordinate comes first, we've used that information to work out that the x coordinate for B is 5. We're told some other information in the question, and that's that the line ABC is parallel to the x-axis, and that means that A, B and C are all exactly the same distance away from the x-axis, the horizontal line at the bottom. And we actually know at what point those are on the y-axis, because we're told that the y-coordinate for A is 4, and we're told that the y-coordinate for C is also 4. And if the y-coordinate for A and C is 4, because B is on the same line, the y-coordinate for B must also be 4. So we've worked out from information we're given in the question and our understanding that the x coordinate comes first and the y coordinate comes second. We've used that information to work out that the coordinates for B are 5, 4. See if you can have a little go at this question using information that you've got in the question and the understanding that we've got so far about coordinates. We've got some key bits of information that we're told in the question. We're told that the shape is a rectangle, which means we know that each of the opposite sides are parallel to each other, and we know that each of the angles is a right angle. We're also told that it's not to scale, and that's important with these type of questions, because it means that no matter what the coordinate numbers are that we're given, we're not going to see those on the x-axis or the y-axis. It doesn't really matter. We can work out the x-axis quite easily because we know that the coordinate of the vertex, which is directly underneath B, is 10 and 3. And because we know that it's a rectangle, we know that that point must be exactly underneath B, because it's a right angle and because the two long sides are the same length. So we know exactly where B is on the x-axis. It must be at the same point as the point underneath it. So we know the x-axis number coordinate for B is 10. Because the shape's a rectangle, we also know that the point to the left of B, that's got the coordinates of 5, 6, must also be on the same line as B, because it's a rectangle and the two sets of lines are parallel to each other and the angles are all right angles. So B must be on the same part of the y-axis as the point 5, 6. So we know that the y-axis is number coordinate is 6. So what looks like at the beginning quite a difficult thing to work out, actually in this case is very, very easy. We just follow the coordinates that are in the same lines as the one we're trying to find out. See if you could use what we're told here. We're told that the shape's an isosceles triangle. Again, it's not to scale. And we're asked to find the missing coordinate. See if you can use that information to work it out for yourself. The shape's an isosceles triangle, which means that both of those angles at the bottom are the same size. It means that those two long sides are exactly the same length, and that's quite important for us. It's important because if the jump from the coordinate 7, 4 to 21, 4, if we look at that jump and just looking at the x-axis coordinates, it's a jump from 7 to 21. Because it's not to scale, it doesn't matter whereabouts those are on the x-axis. What matters is that we know that one x-axis is 7 and the other x-axis number is 21. So we can see that the jump at the bottom is a total jump of 14 between 7 and 21. Because it's an isosceles triangle, we know that the vertex at the top is exactly halfway along the bottom line, the baseline. And if the jump between the x-axis point of 7 and the x-axis point of 21, the bottom two vertices, is we know that jump is 14, then we know the midpoint must be 14, because 7 and another 7 is 14, so that takes us to the middle, and then 14 and another 7 would take us to 21, which would take us to the next vertex. So we know that middle point, the x-axis coordinate of that middle point must be 14. Because it's an isosceles triangle, the midpoint on the baseline is directly underneath the top vertex. And if we know the x-axis coordinate of that middle of that baseline, we know that that means that the x-axis coordinate of that top vertex must be 14. Here's another type of example where we can use what we are told in the question and what we understand about coordinates. See if you can work out what the coordinates of D are. It's really important that we're told that C, D and E are equal distances apart. That's really, really important, and you'll see why in a second. If we know that the jump between C and E on the x-axis is 16, from 0 to 16, we know that the big jump on the x-axis is 16, then we can easily work out what the jump from C to D is, because we know it's halfway between C and E. If the jump between C and E is 16, from 0 on the x-axis to 16 on the x-axis, and we know that D is halfway in between, we know that the x-axis coordinate of D must be 8. It's halfway in between. If we know that the big jump on the y-axis from C to E is 20, and we can see it goes from 0, y-axis coordinate of 0 at C, and a y-axis coordinate of 20 at E, then we know the jump between C and E on the y-axis is 20. Because we know that point D is halfway between C and E, if we know that the big jump on the y-axis is 20, then we know that the jump from C to D must be half of that. So we've worked out then that the y-axis coordinate for D must be 10. See if you can have a go at some on the sheet now on your own. There's an answer sheet to show you if you've got it right or if there's still something you need to work on.